The first scream doesn't come from a villain. It comes from a bystander. A woman trapped beneath a collapsing billboard, her voice cutting through the thunder of gunfire and shattering glass as sups clash above her like gods who have forgotten the ground exists. Sirens choke the air. Cameras roll. Drones hover. Somewhere nearby, a man in a flag-themed cape smiles for the ratings while a city bleeds beneath him. And then, without warning, without spectacle, without even a sound that feels important enough to announce it, someone lands in the middle of the street with a soft thud, like a grocery bag dropped on concrete. He's bald. He's wearing a yellow jumpsuit that looks cheap. His gloves are red. His expression is flat, almost bored, like a man who just missed a sale at the supermarket. Dust settles around his boots. No theme music plays. No one notices him at first, because in a world built on manufactured legends, nothing about him looks impressive. Until the shockwave hits. The billboard doesn't just stop falling. It disintegrates. Steel folds inward like paper crushed by an invisible hand. The air snaps, compressing so violently that windows implode outward in a perfect circle. Every camera within 3 blocks glitches at the exact same moment, frames stuttering as if reality itself blinked. The woman stops screaming, not because she's dead, but because the danger is simply gone, reduced to fragments so small they look like ash. Silence follows, not the peaceful kind, the kind that feels wrong. Saitama stands there, hands still half raised, eyes drifting to the remains of the street as if mildly annoyed by the mess. He didn't even throw a punch. He just reacted. Somewhere above, a soup who was mid-monologue slams into a skyscraper 3 streets away, leaving a crater shaped like a human mistake. He doesn't get back up. People stare. Phones tilt. Vought cameras refocus. Analysts scramble. Somewhere deep inside a glass tower, an executive feels something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. Not fear exactly, but the sudden awareness that the script might no longer belong to them. Saitama looks around, finally noticing the crowd. He scratches the back of his head, squints at the smoking wreckage, and sighs. "Huh," he mutters. "This place seems kind of loud." No one cheers. No one claps. Because instinctively everyone understands the same terrible truth at the same time. Whatever this man is, he didn't arrive to be a hero. He didn't arrive to be a villain. He arrived by accident. And accidents in this world are the most dangerous things of all. This is not a story about what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. This is a story about what happens when absolute power enters a system built on lies, branding, fear, and control, and doesn't care enough to play along. A world where heroes are products, where morality is negotiable, where violence is curated for prime time. A world that has never had to ask what justice looks like when it can't be monetized. Because Saitama doesn't want fame, he doesn't want worship, he doesn't even want purpose. He just wants a decent fight and maybe a quiet life. And in the boy's universe, that might be the most disruptive desire imaginable. If you stay here, if you walk through this story to its end, you won't just watch cities shake or institutions crumble. You'll feel the tension of a world realizing that its strongest weapons mean nothing. You'll see what happens when intimidation stops working, when threats fall flat, when gods learn what it's like to be irrelevant. You'll watch heroes panic, villains overthink, and ordinary people begin to ask a forbidden question. What if power didn't belong to the worst people anymore? The first thing Saitama noticed was the noise. Not the dramatic kind, not explosions or screaming or the roar of some cosmic beast announcing the end of a city, but the dull, constant noise of traffic horns, distant sirens, and people shouting at one another with the exhausted anger of a place that had learned to live on the edge of catastrophe. It was the sound of a world that never stopped grinding forward, even when it probably should have. He stood in the middle of a cracked sidewalk, one plastic grocery bag dangling from his hand, a single leak poking out of the top like a green flag of surrender. For a moment, he wondered if he had taken a wrong turn on the way back from the supermarket. That happened sometimes. But this didn't feel like his city at all. The air smelled wrong. Not like smoke from a monster attack or the metallic tang of ozone that sometimes followed a big fight, but something heavier. Oil, sweat, old trash baked into concrete. The buildings around him were tall, glassy, and aggressively modern, their polished facades plastered with enormous digital billboards. Every screen showed a smiling face in a cape, teeth bright, eyes confident, framed by slogans about hope and protection and strength. The same symbol repeated over and over again, stamped onto walls, buses, and uniforms like a brand burned into the skin of the city. Saitama squinted up at one of the faces. He didn't recognize the guy, but he looked strong in that generic, overproduced way. Too perfect. Like a mascot. Huh, Saitama muttered, shifting the grocery bag in his hand. Did they remodel? A sudden cheer erupted down the street, sharp and sudden enough to snap his attention away from the billboards. A crowd had gathered near an intersection, phones raised, faces lit with excitement. Police cars blocked the road, not in a panic scramble but in a neat, choreographed formation. From above, something streaked down through the air, trailing a faint contrail of blue-white light. It landed in the middle of the intersection with a dramatic crack, asphalt spiderwebbing beneath its boots. The crowd screamed, ecstatic. Saitama watched as the man straightened, cape fluttering just enough to look good on camera. He waved, slow and deliberate, soaking it in. Cameras zoomed. Microphones were shoved forward. Somewhere nearby, a news chopper hovered, its blades chopping the air into a constant, nervous rhythm. Citizenry, the hero boomed, his voice amplified and rich. The threat has been neutralized. You're safe now. The crowd went wild. Saitama blinked. He looked around, scanning for the threat that had apparently just been neutralized. There was a dented car flipped on its side, a shattered storefront, and a man in a ski mask lying face down on the pavement, groaning softly. No monster, no aliens, no city-level disaster, just a guy with a gun, judging by the way one of the officers kicked a handgun farther out of reach with his boot. That's it, Saitama said quietly. No one heard him. The hero posed, hands on his hips, chest out, the picture of effortless confidence. Medics rushed in, careful to stay out of frame. The police deferred, giving the hero space like attendants orbiting a king. Saitama felt something twist in his chest, a faint, unfamiliar sensation. Not anger, not exactly. More like confusion mixed with a dull disappointment he couldn't quite explain. Back home, heroes didn't make speeches like that. They showed up, fixed the problem, and left. Sometimes people cheered. Sometimes they didn't. Sometimes the city was saved and sometimes it was, but it was never a show. This felt rehearsed. The hero lifted off again, blasting skyward in a streak of light, and the crowd finally began to disperse. Saitama stepped forward, more out of habit than curiosity, peering down at the injured criminal. The guy was alive, breathing, terrified. Blood trickled from his nose and his hands shook as he tried to push himself up. "Hey," Saitama said, crouching slightly. "You okay?" The man flinched violently, eyes wide, scrambling backward until his spine hit the curb. "Don't," he rasped. "Don't touch me. I surrendered." Saitama froze, hands hovering uselessly in the air. Okay, sorry." A uniformed officer rushed over, shoving Saitama back with a firm hand to the chest. "Clear the area, sir. This is an active scene." "Oh, right," Saitama said, straightening up. He looked down at the officer, then past him at the man on the ground. "He's not going to die or anything, right?" The officer hesitated just for a fraction of a second, not long enough for anyone else to notice, but long enough for Saitama to catch it. "That's not your concern," the officer said flatly. "Move along." Saitama did. He walked away slowly, the noise of the city closing in around him again. As he went, he noticed the way people looked at him, not with fear or awe, but with irritation. He was just another guy in a cheap yellow jumpsuit and red gloves, cape slightly wrinkled, standing out in a city obsessed with polish and presentation. A few people laughed. Someone snapped a photo and shook their head. "Nice cosplay," a man muttered as he passed. Saitama glanced down at himself. Cosplay. He wandered for a while, letting his feet take him wherever they wanted. The city was dense, layered, alive in a way that felt different from home. There were heroes everywhere, or at least images of them. Merchandise, commercials, action figures, entire stores dedicated to selling branded versions of courage and strength. On one screen, a panel of commentators debated which hero ranked highest this quarter and why. On another, a grieving family praised a cape-wearing savior who had avenged their daughter. Avenged, not saved. Saitama stopped in front of a television mounted in a bar window. The volume was low, but the captions told the story clearly enough. A hero had neutralized a threat overseas. The footage showed a ruined building, smoke rising, bodies being pulled from the rubble. The anchor smiled as she spoke. Something about this world felt off. Not dangerous in the obvious way, not yet, but brittle, like glass stretched too thin. A sudden sharp impact rocked the street a few blocks away. People screamed and ran. Saitama sighed, shoulders slumping, and turned toward the sound. Guess I don't get to eat yet. He broke into a jog, weaving through panicked civilians with ease. The source of the chaos became clear quickly. A massive figure stood in the middle of the road, skin gray and cracked like concrete, eyes glowing with wild fury. A real monster this time. Cars lay crushed around its feet. It roared, swinging an arm the size of a bus, flattening a storefront. Finally, Saitama murmured. He stepped forward, rolling his neck once, setting the grocery bag carefully on the sidewalk. The monster turned, fixing him with a furious glare. It charged. Saitama met it halfway. The punch was casual, almost lazy, a reflex honed by countless fights that had long since lost their thrill. The monster exploded into fragments of stone and dust, the shockwave ripping down the street and shattering windows for blocks. The noise was tremendous, then abruptly gone. Silence fell. Saitama stood there, arm extended, blinking as bits of debris clattered to the ground around him. "Oops," he said, "too hard." He looked around, expecting something. Applause, thanks, at least confusion. Instead, he saw terror. People stared at him with wide eyes, backing away. Someone screamed his head off. Phones dropped. A man vomited onto the pavement. From above, he heard the familiar whomp-whomp of helicopter blades. Saitama looked up just as a spotlight snapped on, pinning him in harsh white light. A voice crackled over a loudspeaker, tight with alarm and authority. "Unidentified soup," it barked. "Get on your knees now." Saitama sighed again, deep and tired. "Man," he muttered, glancing back at the grocery bag, "I really just wanted dinner." High above, behind tinted glass and layers of armor and protocol, men and women watched the feeds with expressions that shifted rapidly from shock to calculation. Somewhere in a pristine boardroom, someone whispered a single word, equal parts fear and opportunity. "Who is that?" And for the first time since arriving in this strange, polished, deeply broken world, Saitama felt it. Not boredom, not annoyance, but the faint, unsettling sense that this place was about to test him in a way no monster ever had. The city's heroes were coming, not to save him, not to thank him. To stop him. The first hero arrived like a missile. The air cracked with a sonic boom as a streak of blue and silver tore through the sky, slamming into the street a dozen yards from Saitama. Asphalt detonated upward, dust and shattered glass erupting in a violent halo. Civilians scattered in every direction, screams layering over the shriek of car alarms. When the dust settled, the hero stood perfectly centered in the crater, cape rippling, chin lifted just enough to catch the camera light. He looked exactly like the billboards. Saitama squinted at him, tall, broad-shouldered, jawline sharp enough to cut glass. The suit was immaculate, polished to a mirror shine, with a symbol emblazoned across the chest that practically screamed trademarked. His eyes glowed faintly, not with power, but with something closer to irritation. "You just caused $37 million in property damage," the hero said, voice amplified, controlled, and cold. "And you did it without authorization." Saitama blinked. "Oh, sorry." The hero's expression didn't change. "Kneel, hands behind your head." Saitama glanced around. The monster dust was still settling. A crushed bus lay on its side. A woman cried somewhere behind him, clinging to a child. He pointed vaguely at the crater where the monster had been. It was attacking people. "That doesn't matter," the hero replied instantly. "Only authorized SUPs are permitted to engage active threats within city limits." Saitama frowned, but it was right there. A second sonic boom split the air. Then a third. Shapes descended from the sky, from rooftops, from armored vehicles screeching to a halt at the edges of the block. Within seconds, Saitama found himself surrounded by heroes. Not just one or two, but a full formation, each one posed perfectly, each one unmistakably designed to be seen. One hovered, one crackled with electricity, one adjusted a visor while drones buzzed overhead, and standing slightly apart, arms folded, cape darker, eyes colder, was the man from the biggest billboards, the one everyone knew. Homelander. The crowd gasped when he landed, boots barely touching the ground. Cameras swung toward him like flowers chasing the sun. He surveyed the scene slowly, deliberately, his gaze lingering on the destruction, the terrified civilians, the pulverized remains of the monster. Then his eyes settled on Saitama. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Homelander smiled. It wasn't warm. It wasn't friendly. It was the kind of smile meant to reassure everyone watching that everything was under control, while quietly promising violence to the person on the receiving end. "Well," Homelander said lightly, floating a few inches above the ground, "this is new." Saitama tilted his head. "You the boss." A few of the heroes stiffened. Someone muttered under their breath. Homelander's smile twitched just barely. "I'm the guy who fixes messes," Homelander said, "and you just made a very big one." He drifted closer, circling Saitama slowly, eyes scanning him from head to toe. The cheap suit, the bald head, the blank expression, no visible weapons, no armor, no branding. "What are you?" Homelander asked. "Lab rat, foreign asset, some kind of performance artist who wandered into the wrong city?" Saitama shrugged. "I'm just a hero." The word hung in the air. Homelander laughed. It was short, sharp, and humorless. "No," he said, "you're not." His eyes flicked toward one of the hovering drones. "Cut the live feed," he said calmly. There was a delay, just a fraction of a second too long. Homelander's head snapped toward the drone, his smile vanished. "Now." The feed cut. The crowd didn't see what happened next. The cameras didn't capture it, but every hero present felt the shift in the air, the pressure, the warning. Homelander stopped in front of Saitama, close enough that Saitama could smell the faint scent of expensive cologne beneath ozone and dust. "You don't get to call yourself that," Homelander said quietly. "Not here." Saitama looked up at him, expression unchanged. "Why not?" "Because it's mine," Homelander didn't say. "Because this world runs on symbols and I am the symbol. Because you didn't bleed for the brand, didn't kneel, didn't ask permission." Instead, he said, "because you didn't save anyone, you terrified them." Saitama glanced around again. He saw the fear now, not relief, not gratitude, fear. People weren't cheering. They were backing away, eyes darting between him and the heroes like prey caught between predators. "That monster was going to hurt them," Saitama said. "It's gone now." Homelander leaned in slightly. "And who's going to protect them from you?" The question landed heavier than any punch. Before Saitama could respond, Homelander straightened and gestured casually. "Take him in." The heroes moved as one. Electricity lashed out, crackling around Saitama's limbs. Gravity slammed down on his shoulders. Sonic force hammered his ears. Energy fields snapped shut like invisible jaws. The street shook under the combined assault. Saitama didn't move. He stood there, eyes wide, more surprised than hurt. "Huh." One of the heroes strained, veins bulging, pouring everything into his power. Why isn't this working? Homelander's eyes narrowed. Saitama gently stepped forward. The gravity field shattered. The electricity fizzled out against his skin. The sonic waves dissipated like mist. He scratched his cheek. You guys done? Silence. Then panic. Several heroes staggered back. One tripped over rubble. Another's visor cracked as he flinched, hands shaking. Homelander didn't move. He hovered in place, staring at Saitama with an intensity that finally dropped the mask. For the first time, something real bled through. Fear. Not the kind that screams, the kind that calculates. Saitama looked at him, really looked at him now. He saw it. The tension. The way Homelander's smile never reached his eyes. The way the others deferred, not out of respect, but survival. Oh, Saitama said softly. Homelander's eyes flashed red. The beam hit Saitama square in the chest. It was hotter than anything else in the city. Focused, lethal, designed to erase whatever it touched. The street behind Saitama melted, vaporizing into slag. When the light faded, Saitama was still there. His suit smoked slightly. The grocery list in his pocket had turned to ash. That was rude, Saitama said. Homelander snapped. He charged, screaming, slamming into Saitama with enough force to level a city block. They tore through buildings, concrete exploding around them, steel folding like paper. Homelander punched again and again, faster and harder. Each blow meant to kill, to dominate, to prove something to himself as much as anyone else. Saitama let it happen. He blocked a punch, casually. The impact sent a shockwave through the city, shattering windows miles away. Homelander froze, staring at his own hand locked against Saitama's forearm. What are you? He whispered. Saitama met his eyes, a hero. He tapped Homelander's chest with 2 fingers. The blow wasn't loud, it wasn't flashy. It was enough. Homelander flew. He vanished into the skyline, a streak of red and blue smashing through buildings before disappearing entirely. The remaining heroes stood frozen, staring at the empty sky. Saitama looked around at them, then down at his empty hands. Did I go too far? He asked. No one answered. Far above, Homelander crashed through a tower and skidded to a stop in a private penthouse, gasping, shaking, staring at the crack in the wall his body had made. For the first time in his life, someone had touched him like that. Not as a fan, not as a subordinate. As an equal. No. As something worse. Back on the street, sirens wailed louder. Black vehicles with no markings rolled in fast. Men in suits watched from behind reinforced glass. Phones buzzed. Orders were whispered. Saitama picked up his flattened grocery bag and sighed. I really just wanted dinner. Somewhere deep inside the machinery of this world, a decision was made. The strongest man alive had just been outmatched. And the system that ruled heroes had found its greatest threat. The city does not sleep after something like that. It twitches. Long after the dust settles and the fires are extinguished, the city remains awake in the way an animal stays alert after sensing a predator nearby. Lights stay on in high-rise offices where they shouldn't. Phones buzz through the night. Private helicopters cut low across the skyline, their rotors slicing the air like nervous thoughts. Somewhere beneath it all, in rooms sealed from sound and consequence, the world quietly rearranges itself. Saitama walks home. No escort, no dramatic exit, just a man in a slightly scorched yellow suit carrying an empty grocery bag through streets that part for him without anyone asking them to. People stare. Some recognize him now. Others only know that something about him feels wrong, like a word pronounced incorrectly that makes the sentence fall apart. He stops at a crosswalk, waits. The light turns green, he crosses. Behind him, several blocks away, a black van idles with its lights off. Inside, men watch through polarized glass, not daring to follow too closely. Their instructions are simple: observe, do not engage, do not provoke, report everything. Above them all, in a boardroom that smells faintly of ozone and expensive disinfectant, Madeline Stillwell stands at the head of a long table, hands folded, posture flawless. Screens along the walls replay the footage that never aired. Homelander's charge, his punch, the moment his body left the frame like a discarded toy. No one speaks. The silence is heavy with fear disguised as professionalism. Finally, Stillwell exhales. "All right," she says calmly, "let's talk mitigation." A man clears his throat. "We can spin it, frame it as a temporary setback, an unknown asset, foreign enhancement tech." Stillwell doesn't look at him. He shrugged off Homelander's lasers. Another voice, sharper, "That footage never goes public." "Of course not," Stillwell replies. "But panic doesn't need footage. It spreads just fine on its own." She turns toward the screen, pausing the image on Saitama's face mid-impact. Blank, almost bored. "This isn't a villain," she says. "Villains want something: attention, control, revenge." "So what does he want?" someone asks. Stillwell's lips press together. "That's the problem." Across the city, in a dim apartment that smells of cheap beer and old regret, Billy Butcher watches the same footage on a cracked laptop. He rewinds it again and again. "Bloody hell," he mutters. Huey stands behind him, arms crossed, eyes wide. He didn't even look angry. "No," Butcher says softly. "He looked annoyed." That scares Butcher more than rage ever could. "Homelander got knocked on his arse," Huey says, "just like that." Butcher closes the laptop slowly. "Means one of two things." Huey swallows. "Which are?" "Either we're all about to get vaporized," Butcher says, standing, "or the universe just handed us the only bloke who might actually be able to kill that psycho." Saitama reaches his apartment building as the sun starts to rise, casting pale orange light across cracked concrete and peeling paint. He pauses at the entrance, noticing the way the lock hangs slightly crooked, as if someone tried very hard to be subtle and failed. Inside, the stairwell smells like old cigarettes and damp carpet. He climbs the steps slowly, yawning, thinking about eggs. He unlocks his door. Someone is already inside. 3 people, to be precise. They stand awkwardly in his living room, clearly not sure where to put their hands or how close is too close. One of them flinches when the door opens. Huey says, "Hi." Saitama blinks. "You're blocking the TV." Butcher steps forward before Huey can panic. He looks Saitama up and down, eyes sharp, cataloging details. The posture, the breathing, the complete lack of threat signals. "Name's Butcher," he says. "We're not here to fight you." Saitama nods. "Good." Butcher pauses. "Because we'd all die." "Probably," Saitama agrees. There's an uncomfortable silence. Annie, standing near the window, finally speaks. "You punched Homelander." Saitama shrugs. "He started it." Butcher exhales a laugh that's half hysteria, half relief. "I like him already." They explain quickly. Not everything, just enough. Vought, the lies, the cover-ups, the way heroes are made and broken behind the scenes. Saitama listens, nodding occasionally, more focused on whether he still has soy sauce than on the moral collapse of American society. "So," Butcher finishes, "you're the strongest thing we've ever seen." Saitama thinks for a moment. "I guess." "But you don't care about fame," Annie says, "or money." Saitama shakes his head. "Seems tiring." "But you do care about helping people," Huey says quietly. Saitama looks at him. "Yeah." That lands harder than any punch. Butcher leans against the wall, crossing his arms. "Then you need to understand something. This world doesn't like heroes, it likes products. You don't fit, and that means they're going to come for you." As if on cue, Saitama's phone buzzes. Unknown number. He answers it. Mr. Saitama, Stillwell's voice purrs through the speaker. We should talk. Saitama sighs. Is this about the grocery store? There's a pause on the line. No, Stillwell says carefully. It's about your future. Saitama looks around at the small apartment, the mismatched furniture, the people who look at him like he might be the answer to prayers they're afraid to say out loud. I don't really have plans, he says. Oh, Stillwell replies, smiling somewhere far away. We do. Outside, a shadow passes over the building. High above, something watches. Homelander has stopped bleeding. And he is very, very angry. Homelander doesn't return to the tower immediately. He circles the city first, high enough that no one can see his face, low enough that he can feel the heat bleeding off the concrete. The skyline looks the same as it always has. Towers, screens, his face everywhere smiling, promising safety. The lie still stands. That almost makes it worse. His chest aches, not from the impact, from the memory. The way it felt when Saitama's fingers touched him. Not pain, not even resistance. Dismissal. Homelander clenches his fists, knuckles whitening, eyes burning red as the city blurs beneath him. He has been screamed at, worshipped, begged, feared. He has never been ignored like that, never been handled like a problem to be solved and set aside. Someone up there thought this was funny. When he finally lands on the balcony of Vought Tower, the reinforced glass fractures under his boots. Inside, alarms chirp softly before cutting themselves off, as if the building knows better than to complain. Stillwell is waiting. She doesn't flinch when he enters. That's why she's survived as long as she has. She stands with her back to the city, hands folded, posture perfect, eyes steady. You should have told me, Homelander says. Told you what? She asks calmly. That something like him existed. Stillwell tilts her head. We didn't know. Homelander laughs, it's sharp, ugly. You always know. She doesn't deny it. We know now. He steps closer, the air vibrates. He embarrassed me. Yes, Stillwell says softly, on a street with no cameras. Homelander's jaw tightens. He wants her to be afraid. He wants her to apologize. Instead, she offers him a solution. We can't destroy him, she continues. Not directly, but we can define him. Homelander scoffs. You think branding fixes this? I think perception does, she replies. People didn't see you lose, they saw chaos, an unknown, a threat. We shape that narrative. Homelander stares at her, and if he doesn't cooperate. Stillwell's smile thins. Then we show the world why they should be afraid of him. Across town, Saitama sits on the floor of his apartment, legs crossed, listening to Butcher pace. They're not offering you a deal, Butcher says. They're offering you a cage with nicer lighting. Saitama nods slowly. That's what I thought. Annie watches him carefully. Then why did you take the call? Saitama scratches the back of his head. They seemed insistent. Huey exhales. That's corporate evil for you. Saitama looks up. Is it always like this here? No one answers right away. Butcher finally shrugs. Yeah, pretty much. Saitama considers that, not with anger, with something closer to disappointment. I was hoping it'd be simpler, he says. Outside, the street erupts into noise. Sirens, shouting, a distant explosion, muffled but unmistakable. Butcher's head snaps toward the window. That's not normal. Saitama stands. I'll check. Before anyone can stop him, he steps onto the windowsill and hops down 5 stories like it's nothing. The landing cracks the pavement, but he barely notices. He follows the sound, moving fast enough that people only feel a breeze as he passes. 3 blocks away, a building burns. Not an accident, not random. A soup stands at the center of it, flames coiling around his arms like serpents, eyes wild, breathing ragged. He's young, too young. His costume is half melted, insignia warped beyond recognition. I didn't mean to, The soup screams as fire spreads uncontrollably. I didn't mean to. Soldiers surround the area, weapons raised but hesitant. Vought drones hover overhead, capturing everything. Saitama steps into view. The soup turns, panic flashing across his face. Stay back. Saitama raises his hands. You okay? The flames sputter, just a little. I can't stop, the soup sobs. They said I was ready, they said I was a hero. Saitama looks at the burning building, at the trapped screams inside. You're not a hero yet, Saitama says gently, but you can still help. He walks forward, ignoring the heat. The flames lick his suit and die. He places a hand on the soup's shoulder. Breathe, he says. The fire collapses inward, imploding into nothing. The building still burns, but the source is gone. The soup drops to his knees, shaking, alive. The soldiers freeze. The drones zoom in. Back at Vought Tower, executives watch the feed in silence. Stillwell's fingers tighten around her tablet. He's de-escalating, someone whispers, without violence. Homelander watches from the shadows of the room, eyes narrowing. Saitama pulls civilians from the building with absurd ease, moving faster than collapsing floors, carrying people like groceries. He doesn't pose. He doesn't look at the cameras. He just works. And people start cheering. Not because they're told to. Because they want to. Butcher watches the footage on a street-level monitor, jaw tight. That's bad. Huey frowns, bad. For Vought, Butcher says, and that makes it bad for him. Stillwell turns to Homelander. We need you to respond. Homelander steps into the light, face composed, smile returned. Of course. He launches skyward, a patriotic blur. By the time he arrives, the fire is mostly out. The crowd is gathered. Saitama stands amid them, awkwardly waving off praise. Homelander lands beside him, arms sliding around Saitama's shoulders like an old friend. Great work, Homelander says loudly, really stepping up. Saitama stiffens. You're heavy. Homelander's smile twitches. Cameras flash. The crowd cheers louder. America loves a new hero, Homelander continues, especially one willing to play on the team. Saitama looks at him, really looks this time, at the tension beneath the smile, the fear. I don't want to be on your team, Saitama says, not unkindly. The crowd quiets. Homelander leans closer, voice low. You don't get to choose that. Saitama's expression hardens just a fraction. I think I do. For a split second, Homelander considers killing him. Right there, consequences be damned. Instead, he laughs loud and warm. He's got jokes. The crowd laughs too, relieved. But something has shifted. Saitama steps away. I'm going home. As he walks off, Homelander watches him go, fists clenched at his sides. Stillwell's voice crackles in his earpiece. Careful. Homelander doesn't respond. Far above, clouds gather where there were none before. And for the first time since he learned he was invincible, Homelander wonders what it would feel like to lose everything. The first thing Saitama notices is the quiet. Not the peaceful kind. Not the gentle lull between disasters that New York occasionally pretends to have. This is the quiet of anticipation, stretched thin, humming like a wire pulled too tight. The city feels like it's holding its breath around him, waiting to see what kind of man he's going to be. He doesn't like it. He walks instead of jumping this time, hands in his pockets, yellow suit scuffed with soot that never quite burns away. People recognize him now. Some stare openly. Some whisper. Some lift their phones and then hesitate as if unsure whether recording him is allowed yet. That hesitation bothers him more than fear would have. At a crosswalk, a kid tugs on his mother's sleeve and points. That's him, the bald guy. The mother pulls the kid closer, unsure whether to smile or apologize. Saitama nods politely anyway. A few blocks away, Butcher watches from a parked car, engine idling, cigarette burning down between his fingers. He's been tracking patterns long enough to know when one is forming, and this one has teeth. "They're letting him walk," he mutters. MM glances up from his tablet. "Letting who walk?" "Vought," Butcher says. "They ain't pushing back, not hard, not yet." "That's good, right?" Huey asks from the back seat. "Less collateral." Butcher shakes his head. "No, that means they're thinking." Above them, a billboard flickers. Homelander's smile dissolves into a breaking news banner. The anchor's voice is calm, practiced. Ongoing discussion about the unidentified individual involved in last night's incident. Vought officials assure the public. The screen glitches. For half a second, Homelander's face isn't smiling. Saitama stops mid-step. He feels it then. A pressure, faint but undeniable, like standing near an oncoming storm. He looks up. The sky is clear. Somewhere deep beneath Vought Tower, doors seal that haven't closed in years. Rooms without windows wake up. Files that were never meant to be opened surface again, dragged into the light by fear wearing a suit and tie. Stillwell stands in one of those rooms, staring at a wall of screens that show Saitama from every angle. Walking, talking, saving people without permission. He's not violent, an analyst says. Public sentiment is trending positive. Stillwell doesn't look at him. So was Homelander once. A technician hesitates. "We could integrate him, position him as a complementary asset. Opposition to Homelander could fracture the base." Stillwell finally turns. "Or it could remind them that gods are optional." The room goes quiet. She folds her hands. "Initiate phase 3. The words feel heavier than they sound. On the street, Saitama senses movement behind him. He turns just as a man in a Vought jacket steps into his path. Mid-30s, polite smile, eyes sharp enough to cut glass. "Mr. Saitama," the man says. "I'm Elliot, public relations liaison." Saitama blinks. "Oh, hi." "We'd like to talk," Elliot continues, gesturing to a black car idling at the curb. "Somewhere private." Saitama looks at the car, then at the people watching from a distance. The phones slowly rise again. "I don't really like cars," he says. "They're cramped." Elliot's smile tightens. "This won't take long." Behind the PR man, a woman stumbles out of a nearby alley, clutching her arm. Blood seeps through her fingers. Saitama's attention snaps to her instantly. "Hey, you okay?" He steps around Elliot without waiting for permission. The woman collapses, knife wound, sloppy, recent. Saitama kneels, applying pressure. "You'll be fine," he says, though he doesn't know if that's true. He looks up. "Call an ambulance." Elliot hesitates. That's all Saitama needs to see. "You should have already," Saitama says, voice calm but firmer than before. The ambulance arrives late, too late. The woman dies with her eyes open, staring at a sky she never expected to see again. Around them, the city goes silent. Saitama stands slowly. His fists tremble, not with rage but with something heavier. Responsibility settling into place whether he wants it or not. He turns back to Elliot. "What did you want to talk about?" Elliot swallows. "Optics." Saitama looks down at the blood on his gloves. "People keep dying while you're worried about optics." The PR man opens his mouth, then closes it. That night, footage of the alley hits the networks. Not the stabbing, not the delay. Just Saitama standing over the body, silent, motionless, framed in shadow. The headline changes. Questions replace praise. Is he too late? Is he careless? Is he dangerous? Homelander watches it all from his penthouse, glass of milk untouched in his hand. "They're turning on him," he murmurs. Stillwell's voice comes through the speaker, smooth and satisfied. "No, we're reminding them what uncertainty feels like." Homelander smiles. Saitama sits alone on a rooftop, legs dangling over the edge, city lights flickering below. He hears sirens everywhere now. Each one sounds like an accusation. For the first time, he wonders if strength is enough. And somewhere beneath the city, something else begins to move, drawn by the imbalance he's created. A threat that doesn't care about heroes at all. The sirens don't stop when Saitama leaves the rooftop. They follow him. Not literally, not chasing him down the streets, but lingering in the air, threading through the city's veins like a reminder that things are still breaking even when he isn't looking. He lands in a quiet block just before dawn, the kind of neighborhood Vought never advertises because it doesn't sell well. Cracked sidewalks, windows taped instead of replaced, a corner store with bars on the glass and a flickering open sign that hasn't been turned off in years. He stands there for a moment, unsure why he came. Then he hears shouting. A convenience store door bursts open, a man stumbling out backward, hands raised, panic written across his face. Behind him, another man follows, gun shaking, breath uneven. Not a soup, just desperate, just scared. Saitama moves without thinking. He steps between them. The gunman freezes. "Hey," Saitama says gently, "you don't need to do this." The man's eyes dart over the yellow suit, the bald head, the calm expression that doesn't match the chaos of the moment. "Get out of the way," he snaps. "This ain't your business." Saitama tilts his head. It kind of is. The gun fires. Saitama catches the bullet between his fingers. The sound is sharp, final, louder than it should be in the quiet street. The gunman stares, disbelief shattering whatever resolve he had left. He drops the weapon and runs, disappearing into the alleys. The clerk sinks to the ground, sobbing. Saitama hands him the bullet. "You should probably lock the door for a bit." The man nods, barely hearing him. Across the street, a woman has filmed the entire thing. She doesn't cheer. She doesn't smile. She just watches Saitama like she's trying to decide what category to put him in. By the time he looks back up, she's already uploading the video. At Vought Tower, the reaction is immediate. "Spin it," an executive says, "fast." "We can't," another replies. "He didn't hurt anyone." "Then frame the question," Stillwell says. "Why was he there? Why does violence keep happening around him?" Homelander leans against the glass, listening, eyes half-lidded. "You're making him look incompetent." "We're making him look human," Stillwell corrects. "That's worse." By noon, the narrative has shifted again. Clips of Saitama catching bullets play side by side with footage of the woman in the alley, the dead body from the night before, the unanswered questions piling up. Is he choosing where to intervene? Who decides what he saves? What happens when he doesn't arrive in time? Saitama feels it in the way people look at him now. Less awe, more expectation. He walks past a construction site and hears someone mutter, "If he's so strong, why isn't he everywhere?" That one sticks. He finds the boys in their hideout without meaning to. Or maybe he did mean to, on some level. He just didn't realize it until he's standing in the doorway, ducking slightly so he doesn't hit his head. Butcher stares at him unimpressed. "You again." "Hi," Saitama says. Huey blinks. "How did you?" "Walked," Saitama replies. Exhales slowly. "That figures." They show him the data, the trending curves, the sentiment analysis, the way public opinion rises and falls like a heartbeat depending on whether Saitama is visible or not. "You're not a person to them anymore," says. "You're a variable." Saitama frowns. "I don't like math." Butcher smirks despite himself. "No kidding." Annie steps forward. "They're setting you up, same way they did with us. Build you up, then blame you for everything that goes wrong." Saitama looks at the screen again, at the numbers, at the city reduced to graphs and predictions. "So what do I do?" he asks. No one answers right away. Finally, Butcher speaks. "You decide what you are before they decide for you." That night, something breaks beneath the city. Not an explosion, not a soup fight, a structural failure, old tunnels collapsing, dragging power lines and foundations down with them. An entire block starts to sink. Saitama arrives in time to hold buildings upright with his hands, muscles straining against concrete and steel. He saves hundreds. One man dies anyway. The cameras catch Saitama standing amid the wreckage, dust-covered, breathing hard for the first time anyone's ever seen. The headline is already writing itself. Strong enough to hold the city. Not strong enough to save everyone. Deep underground, whatever was disturbed by the collapse finishes waking up, drawn to the pressure Saitama put on the world. And as Saitama looks over the damage, he realizes something that hits harder than any punch. No matter how strong he is, this universe is going to make him choose who gets to live with the consequences. The thing beneath the city doesn't announce itself. There is no roar, no cinematic eruption, no single moment people can point to later and say that's when it all went wrong. It begins as pressure. A wrongness in the air that engineers can't quantify, and psychics Vought doesn't admit to employing refuse to put their names on. Stress fractures appear in places that should be stable. Sensors register mass where there should be none. Something deep, old, and patient has noticed that the world above it bent and did not snap. Saitama feels it before anyone else. He's sitting on the edge of a half-rebuilt overpass, legs dangling, eating a convenience store sandwich that tastes mostly like regret. The city hums beneath him, patched together but still limping. He closes his eyes not out of exhaustion but because the vibration through the concrete has changed. Not louder, slower, like a heartbeat learning a new rhythm. He stands. Far below, something shifts. At Vought Tower, alarms finally trigger. Not red, not evacuation level. Yellow. The kind that suggests uncertainty rather than danger, which somehow makes everyone in the room more nervous. This isn't a soup, an analyst says, scrolling through live data. There's no compound V signature, no metabolic spike. It's geological. Homelander scoffs, so it's a hole. Stillwell doesn't look at him. It's moving. The feed switches to underground cameras, old infrastructure Vought bought and forgot about decades ago. Tunnels bow inward. Reinforcement beams bend like wet cardboard. Something massive presses against the edges of the frame, not forcing its way through but testing. Learning. Homelander's jaw tightens. Send me. Stillwell finally turns. No. The word lands harder than any order she's ever given him. We don't know what this is, she continues, and if you fail. Homelander smiles, sharp and offended. I don't fail. Then we lose you, she finishes, and right now perception is all we have left. Homelander's eyes flicker, not with fear but with something more dangerous, resentment. Elsewhere the boys feel the shift too, though none of them have the words for it yet. Huey watches dust fall from the ceiling of the hideout, heart rate spiking. Kimiko stiffens, eyes tracking something only she seems to sense. Annie looks toward the city, a quiet dread settling into her chest. Saitama lands near them without warning. Hey, he says, something big is coming. Butcher exhales smoke, unbothered on the surface. That narrows it down to the entire bloody planet. Saitama shakes his head. No, this is different. He kneels, presses his hand to the ground. The concrete trembles beneath his palm, not violently, but insistently, like a knock from below. MM's voice is tight. Whatever it is, Vought's already spinning it. Underground terror threat, non-soup extremist event. Saitama straightens. If it's under the city, people live above it. That's usually how cities work, Butcher mutters. Before anyone can argue further, the ground drops. Not collapses, drops. A section of street vanishes, swallowed cleanly, buildings tilting inward as if the earth itself has decided to inhale. Screams rise, sharp and immediate. Sirens follow seconds later, too late to matter. Saitama moves. He doesn't think about permission or optics or narratives. He jumps into the hole. The darkness swallows him fast, air rushing past as the walls blur. He lands deeper than he expects, boots cracking stone that hasn't seen light in centuries. The space opens around him, vast and wrong, a cavern carved not by erosion but by intention. It's not a monster. Not exactly. It's a structure, organic and mechanical at once, layers of dense material folded into each other like armor grown rather than built. It pulses, slow and heavy, reacting to his presence. Lights flicker across its surface, not electricity, but something closer to awareness. Saitama stares, Above ground, every sensor Vought has goes wild. Energy spikes without heat, mass without displacement. The city screams in numbers no one understands. Homelander feels it from the sky. For the first time since Saitama arrived, there is something else on the board that does not care about either of them. Down below, the structure shifts again, responding to Saitama the way a muscle responds to strain. A voice, if it can be called that, vibrates through the stone, not speaking words but intent. Pressure, balance, correction. Saitama feels it press against him, not attacking but measuring. And for the first time in this universe, something looks at Saitama and does not see a hero, or a god, or a threat. It sees a problem. The cavern shudders as the structure begins to rise toward the surface. And Saitama realizes this fight isn't about strength at all. It's about whether the world can survive being corrected. The structure doesn't attack. That's what unsettles Saitama the most. It rises, not violently, not with rage, but with the calm inevitability of gravity. Stone peels away as if politely excusing itself. Reinforced steel bends without screaming. The city above groans, a low, collective sound like a creature waking from anesthesia and realizing something is wrong. Saitama floats backward, suspended in the widening cavern, watching the thing reveal more of itself. It isn't symmetrical. It isn't monstrous in a way people would recognize. It's layered, modular, grown in sections that interlock like decisions stacked on top of older decisions. There are no eyes, no mouth, no obvious weapons. It feels administrative. Pressure builds in the air, not crushing but clarifying. Saitama's ears pop. His skin tingles the way it does when he's standing too close to something powerful, except this power isn't aggressive. It's corrective, like the universe has found an error and is preparing to fix it. Above ground, the city breaks. Not all at once, not dramatically. Windows shatter in a ripple. Bridges sag. Entire blocks tilt a few degrees off level, enough to make people fall and realize gravity has opinions now. Emergency broadcasts overlap each other in panicked loops. Vought seizes the moment instantly. This is an extinction-level subterranean threat. A calm anchor says on every channel, face perfectly composed. Vought assets are mobilizing to protect American lives. Homelander streaks through the sky before the sentence finishes. He sees the damage from above, streets folding inward, steam venting from ruptured infrastructure, people scattering like ants from a disturbed nest. For a fleeting moment, something tightens in his chest. Not fear. Competition. He hears it before he sees it, a deep vibration that makes the clouds shiver. The structure breaches the surface in slow motion, not exploding out but displacing everything around it. Buildings shear cleanly in half. Asphalt peels back. The thing rises like a continent remembering it was never meant to stay buried. Homelander stops midair. "What the hell is that?" he whispers. Down below, Saitama rockets upward, breaking through layers of stone and debris until he lands on the structure's surface as it emerges into daylight. The sky reflects off its strange material in dull, distorted patterns. It doesn't burn. It doesn't bleed. It absorbs light the way deep water does. Homelander hovers closer, eyes narrowed. "You again." Saitama looks up. Oh, hey. The structure reacts. Not to Homelander. To Saitama. Panels along its surface shift, reconfiguring, forming channels that pulse with energy Saitama can feel in his bones. The vibration intensifies, focused now, directional. Homelander bristles. It's ignoring me. He fires heat vision. The beams slam into the structure and vanish, swallowed without resistance. No scorch marks, no reaction. Homelander fires again, longer this time, jaw clenched. Nothing. Saitama watches, hands in his pockets. That usually works for you. Homelander snaps. He charges, fist cocked back, striking the structure with enough force to shatter mountains. The impact sends a shockwave through the city. The structure adjusts. A ripple travels outward from the point of contact, redistributing the force, channeling it down into the earth. Somewhere miles away, a fault line releases tension it's been holding for centuries. Homelander recoils, arm tingling. He stares at his hand, flexes his fingers. That's new. The pressure spikes again, focused entirely on Saitama now. He feels it pressing against him, not physically but conceptually, like a question being asked without words. Correction required. Saitama exhales. Okay, guess we're doing this. He punches. Not hard, not yet. The structure responds instantly, folding space around the impact, absorbing the blow and sending it back at him sideways. Saitama is launched across the city, skidding through 3 blocks before stopping in a crater. He stands, blinks. Oh, that's different. Above, Homelander laughs, not because it's funny, because it's relieving. You missed, he calls out, voice echoing. Guess you're not perfect after all. Saitama looks up, dusting off his gloves. Nah, it's just smarter than most stuff. The structure pulses again, and this time the ground beneath Homelander shifts. He stumbles midair as gravity warps, vectors twisting unpredictably. For the first time in years, flight feels conditional. What are you doing to me? Homelander snarls. The answer isn't directed at him. The structure projects outward, a wave of energy that passes through the city like a breath. Every soup caught in it screams, powers flicker, strength falters, regeneration stutters. Compound V reacts violently, destabilizing in ways no one has ever recorded. In the Vought control room, screens go dark one by one. What did it do? An engineer panics. Stillwell watches the data scroll, face pale. It's equalizing. Below, Butcher drops to one knee, blood trickling from his nose. Bloody hell. Kimiko clutches her head, shaking, eyes wide with something close to terror. Annie gasps, light flickering uselessly around her hands. Saitama feels it too. Not weakening him. Targeting him. The structure finally communicates in a way that borders on language, a resonance that vibrates directly through Saitama's awareness. Anomaly identified. Probability cascade exceeds acceptable variance. Balance compromised. Saitama frowns. You're saying I'm bad math. The pressure increases, attempting to compress him, to define him, to slot him into a system that cannot contain him. For the first time since arriving in this world, Saitama feels resistance not to his strength, but to his existence. Homelander watches, realization dawning too late. It's not a weapon, he says quietly, it's a fix. The structure rises higher, eclipsing the sun, casting the city in shadow. Its presence stabilizes the ground even as it dismantles everything else, rewriting physical rules to accommodate its correction. Saitama clenches his fists. He understands now. This thing isn't evil. It isn't even hostile. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do, remove outliers that threaten systemic collapse. And in this universe, nothing is a bigger outlier than him. If he fights it at full power, he might win. But the city won't. And neither will the people he's been trying, clumsily, to protect. Homelander drifts closer, voice low. If it kills you, it stops, right? Saitama looks at him. Really looks. No, he says, it'll just keep fixing things, you included. The structure tightens its focus, energy building toward a decisive action. Around them, reality hums, straining. Saitama takes a breath. Not to power up. To decide. And somewhere deep inside the structure, something shifts, not in response to force but to choice. The correction pauses. Just long enough for Saitama to realize that winning this fight might mean becoming exactly what this world fears. The pause feels wrong. Not quiet, never quiet, but suspended, like the universe inhaled and forgot how to exhale. The structure hangs in the sky, its immense form frozen mid-correction, energy fields humming at a pitch just below pain. The shadow it casts over the city is perfectly circular, unnaturally precise, as if even darkness has been optimized. Debris remains caught in mid-fall. A bus tilts nose down, unmoving, suspended over a fractured street. Smoke curls upward and stops, sculpted into spirals that refuse to disperse. Saitama floats at the center of it all, arms relaxed at his sides, cape fluttering even though there is no wind. He can feel the structure thinking. Not emotionally, mechanically. Vast layers of logic turning over a paradox it was never meant to encounter. It was built to correct extremes, to smooth chaotic spikes in probability, to bring violent systems back into equilibrium. It knows how to erase gods. It knows how to sterilize worlds. It does not know what to do with someone who refuses to act. The pressure returns, not as force, but as inquiry. Define acceptable loss. Saitama grimaces. Man, you guys are really bad at small talk. Below, the city remains locked in terror. People scream without sound. Others stare upward, mouths open, eyes reflecting the impossible geometry overhead. Cameras still work. Phones still record. Somewhere, deep in Vought's underground bunkers, backup systems reboot just enough to stream the image worldwide. A bald man in a yellow suit, floating calmly beneath a machine that looks like it's about to rewrite reality. Homelander watches from a distance, hovering unsteadily. His powers haven't fully returned. He can feel them like a limb waking up after being asleep too long, but they're unreliable now, flickering, conditional. For the first time, the sky doesn't feel like it belongs to him. He listens. The structure doesn't speak aloud, but Homelander feels something brush against his mind anyway. Not a voice, a categorization. Asset instability source, secondary. Rage flares in his chest. Hey, he shouts, flying closer despite the vertigo. I'm the one you should be worried about. I'm the goddamn hero here. The structure ignores him. That hurts more than anything. Saitama turns his head slightly. You should probably back up. Homelander sneers. Why? Afraid I'll get hurt? No, Saitama says honestly. Afraid you'll get in the way. That lands wrong. Homelander charges. The moment he crosses an invisible threshold, the structure reacts, not violently but efficiently. Gravity inverts around him. His momentum twists sideways, slamming him into the air like a fly caught in a closing book. He tumbles uncontrollably, crashing through a half-frozen cloud bank before barely stabilizing. He screams. Not in pain. In humiliation. Saitama exhales slowly. See, he mutters. The structure's attention sharpens again, fully back on him now. Energy gathers, folding inward, preparing to collapse probability around a single point. Around Saitama. Correction imminent. He closes his eyes. For the first time since arriving in this world, he doesn't think about winning. He thinks about the grocery store he never found, about the apartment he never unpacked into, about the strange, brittle smiles of people who had cheered him without understanding him, about the fear he saw in their eyes when they realized he wasn't part of their system. He opens his eyes. "Okay," he says quietly, "let's talk about balance." The structure responds, projecting a field that isolates them completely. Inside it, time resumes, but only for the two of them. The city remains frozen outside, an exhibit of consequence waiting for a verdict. Within the field, Saitama can feel the rules clearly now. This isn't a fight, it's an audit. The structure presses again, harder this time, attempting to quantify him. Energy crawls over his skin, probing, measuring, testing thresholds that do not exist. Equations form and collapse in rapid succession. Error. Error. Non-convergent entity. Saitama grimaces. "Yeah, I get that a lot." The pressure spikes, compressing the space around him, trying to force him into a defined state. His cape flutters violently. The air hums, thickening like gel. He could punch his way out. He knows that. But he also knows what happens next if he does. So instead, he does something the structure cannot predict. He steps forward. Not with force. With intent. The field warps, surprised, as Saitama walks directly into the densest concentration of corrective energy. It presses against him, trying to stop him, but his foot still plants firmly, cracking invisible layers like glass. "I'm not here to break your world," he says. "I just don't fit in it." The structure pauses again, processing. If anomaly persists, systemic collapse probability increases. Saitama shrugs. "Yeah, but you fixing everything doesn't exactly help either." He gestures outward toward the frozen city. "You erase extremes. That includes hope. That includes choice. You turn people into numbers so the math works out." The energy around him flickers. Correction ensures survival. "Survival isn't the same as living," Saitama replies. He feels it then, a shift, not agreement, curiosity. He keeps going. "You want balance? Fine, I'll give you balance." He raises a fist. "Not to strike. To offer. I'll leave." The structure vibrates, energy surging in unstable patterns. Departure reduces anomaly influence to zero. Correction unnecessary. Homelander hears it too, the shift in pressure, the way the sky seems to loosen its grip. "What?" he shouts. "No, no, you don't just get to leave." Saitama doesn't look at him. "If I stay," Saitama continues, "you keep trying to fix me, or the world keeps breaking around me. Either way, people lose. That's not balance." The structure processes rapidly now, running futures faster than light. Scenarios branch and collapse, most ending in ruin. One stabilizes. Departure path viable. Correction suspended. Saitama feels the pressure ease slightly, like fingers loosening around his throat. "On one condition," he adds. The structure hesitates. Define condition. Saitama glances at the city one last time, at the people frozen mid-fear, at the sups who never asked to be experiments, at a world that worships strength because it doesn't know what else to do. "You don't fix them," he says. "You let them figure it out, messy, slow, human." The structure absorbs the data. Long-term instability risk remains. "Yeah," Saitama says softly, "that's life." The field hums, then contracts inward, sealing the decision. Correction terminated. Balance deferred. A beam of light forms around Saitama, brighter than the sun but strangely gentle, wrapping him in layers of controlled distortion. He feels space stretching, reality thinning. Homelander surges forward, fighting gravity, screaming, "You can't just walk away. You think you're better than us." Saitama finally looks at him. "No," he says, "I think you deserve a chance to be." The beam intensifies. Outside the field, time snaps back into motion. The city collapses the rest of the way down, but gently now, like a controlled demolition halted halfway through. People fall, scream, run. Sups gasp as their powers fully return, unstable but intact. The structure begins to sink, retracting into the earth, its task incomplete but abandoned. And Saitama vanishes. No explosion. No flash. Just absence. High above, clouds rush to fill the empty space where he was. Homelander hangs in the air, shaking, staring at nothing. For the first time in his life, the world wasn't saved by him. And for the first time, it wasn't destroyed either. Somewhere between those truths, something fragile takes root. The world doesn't end. That is the first thing everyone notices. There is no cleansing fire, no divine reckoning, no final judgment written in light across the sky. The structure finishes sinking beneath the earth like a nightmare retreating into the subconscious, leaving behind cracked streets, shattered glass, and the stunned realization that existence has chosen, for once, not to resolve itself neatly. People begin to move again. At first it's panic, raw animal panic, as gravity fully reasserts itself and the city remembers how weight works. Screams tear loose. Sirens ignite in overlapping waves. Buildings settle, some collapsing entirely, others standing by pure stubbornness. Dust clouds roll through avenues like surf breaking against concrete. And above it all, Homelander floats. He doesn't descend. He doesn't speak. He simply hangs there, cape fluttering, eyes fixed on the place where Saitama vanished. The cameras catch everything. They always do. Within minutes, the footage is everywhere, slowed down, zoomed in, enhanced. 1,000 commentators scream theories over one another while millions watch the same silent moment again and again, the bald man raising his fist, not to strike but to leave. Vought scrambles. Emergency protocols cascade through the tower. Executives bark orders they don't fully understand. Analysts replay energy readings that no longer exist. Lawyers already begin drafting narratives, contingency statements, sanitized explanations for something that refuses to be clean. They settle on the only thing they can sell. Containment successful. The threat neutralized. The hero departed. But the numbers don't lie, no matter how hard they try to bend them. Market confidence doesn't rebound. Approval ratings for sups don't recover. Something fundamental has cracked in the collective psyche. Because people saw it. They saw power that didn't posture, strength that didn't need applause, a being who could have ruled and chose absence instead. That idea lingers. It grows teeth. Homelander lands hard on a rooftop, knees bending deeper than he intends. His breathing is ragged, sweat beads along his temples. His powers feel wrong, not weaker exactly, just louder, less obedient. Like they're waiting for something. Maeve finds him there an hour later. She doesn't announce herself, doesn't need to. "You look like shit," she says. He doesn't turn. "You here to give me a speech?" "No," she steps closer, eyes scanning the skyline. "I'm here because you didn't win, and you didn't lose, and that scares you more than anything." He clenches his fists. The concrete beneath his boots fractures. "He left," Homelander snaps, "ran away." Maeve exhales. "You still don't get it." He spins on her, eyes blazing. "Then explain it to me." She holds his gaze, unflinching. "He didn't leave because he was afraid of you. He left because staying would have broken everything." Silence stretches between them, heavy and uncomfortable. Maeve continues, quieter now. "And you know what that means." Homelander's jaw tightens. He knows. He hates that he knows. It means the world didn't need saving from him. It needed protecting from itself. And Saitama trusted it to try. Across the city, smaller stories unfold. A woman pulls her child from beneath rubble, sobbing with relief. A soup stares at his hands, terrified by how normal they feel now. A group of people gather around a cracked statue of a fallen hero, arguing, not about worship but about accountability. The word spreads without a name. Joyce. Not imposed, not enforced. Allowed. Weeks pass. The world does what it always does. It adapts badly at first. Governments investigate the structure and find nothing. Scientists argue whether it was alien, divine, or emergent probability given form. Religious groups fracture into schisms overnight. Some call Saitama a savior. Others call him a coward. Vought hemorrhages control. Without a singular, overwhelming threat to point at, the questions turn inward. Lawsuits pile up. Former subs testify. Whistleblowers find courage they didn't have before. Ratings slip. Shareholders panic. Homelander remains the face of it all, but something in him has shifted. He still smiles for cameras, still delivers speeches, still terrifies rooms into silence. But alone, in the quiet hours, he listens for something he can't hear anymore. Certainty. Sometimes he dreams of a grocery store he's never seen, of fluorescent lights and boring aisles and a man standing patiently in line, entirely unremarkable. He wakes furious. Somewhere far beyond this universe, Saitama opens his eyes. He lies on his back, staring at a familiar cracked ceiling. The paint is peeling in the same spot. The air smells faintly of dust and cheap detergent. His apartment. Home. He sits up slowly, half expecting alarms, portals, something dramatic. Nothing happens. His stomach growls. Man, he mutters, I missed dinner again. He stands, stretches, and checks the calendar. It's the same date he remembers. Time has folded itself politely, like none of it mattered enough to argue. Outside, the city hums with its usual indifference. Saitama steps into the street, hands in pockets, blending instantly into the crowd. No one recognizes him. No one stares. No one needs him. For the first time in a long while, that doesn't sting. He passes a convenience store, pauses, then goes inside. As he waits in line, he catches his reflection in the glass of a refrigerator door. Same blank expression, same bald head. But something behind his eyes has changed. He thinks about the world he left behind, about the man who shouted at the sky, about the fragile, messy thing called hope that he chose not to carry for them. He wonders if they'll figure it out. He hopes they do. The cashier rings him up. That'll be $4.20. Saitama hands over the money, takes the bag. As he turns to leave, he feels it, a faint tug, distant but familiar. Not danger, not a call to action. Just awareness. Somewhere, someone is choosing what kind of strength they want to be. Saitama smiles, small and private. Good luck, he murmurs, to no one in particular. The door swings shut behind him. The world continues. Not balanced, not perfect, but alive. And for the first time in a very long time, that feels like enough.